We wanted to be a hub for the wedding filmmaking community because ultimately, if we can help elevate the wedding film industry, my Redeemed Productions company benefits, and so does Nick's, and so does yours. And so like that was selfishly, it's like if we can get people to stop charging, $1,500 for a wedding their 7th year into business because they're afraid to raise their price, like that will help me, help them, help me, and so it just all flowed together.
Hello everybody and welcome to Show Love episode 14. My name is Ben. I will be your host, and joining me from Tulsa, Oklahoma and Wichita, Kansas respectively, we have John Bunn and Nick Miller from the How to Film Weddings podcast. Boys, thanks for joining me.
You bet, man. I'm excited to be here.
You bet. Glad to be here.
Wicked. Now, I mean, there'll be a lot of people on my podcast who know exactly who you boys are. But I do have a lot of like photographers and stuff as part of my audience. So I guess to start us off, do you want to give us a little bit of a rundown on who you guys are individually as wedding videographers, how you met, and then how the How to Film Weddings podcast originated and what that's all about?
Nick, you go first, man. I always go first.
Okay. So, like Ben said, my name is Nick Miller. I am located in Wichita, Kansas. My business is Wild Oak Films. We are a husband and wife team. My wife Jen, she shoots every wedding with me. I started in 2012 or so doing wedding videos, and my wife came on and joined me full time in about 2015. After that season, we had our son in 2015. Then starting that fall in 2016, she joined me full time, and then I quit my day job at the summer of 2017. So I've been doing wedding video full time since 2017. I don't know. A few years ago, I went to how John and I met. I'll jump into there. I went to the Venture Workshop, and this was the very first one in Colorado. And one of the things that I walked away from was that I needed to really get into some education type stuff and, create a YouTube channel and kind of push that sort of material out into the world. I was a youth pastor before I did this, so education and teaching was kind of a hole that was not being filled within me. And so I just started creating some YouTube content, and John messaged me out of the blue telling me he needed a second shooter for this wedding in Oklahoma City, which is about, he's in Tulsa, I'm in Wichita. Oklahoma City's about 2.5 hours from both of us. So he was like, hey, come shoot this wedding with me, and he was kind of feeling me out to see if I was a cool guy or not. And I guess I am enough anyway.
Yeah, medium cool.
Yeah, medium cool. He saw this video that I made, this YouTube video, and he had wanted to get into education type material, but he said that he couldn't get the feel of it. Like it just didn't feel right when he would watch it. And then he watched this video I made, and he was like, yes, that's it. So then he contacted me, and I second shot for him, and that was kind of the start of How to Film Weddings. But I'll let John tell you a little bit about his business and then continue the story from there.
Man, I was enjoying it. You're doing a great job. But I will jump in because I always do have thoughts, of course. But my name is John Bunn, and I am in Tulsa, Oklahoma. My company, Redeemed Productions, was started in 2007. So 2007, most of your listeners might have been in diapers at that point because I'm old and it's fine. But I've been shooting since
like they were
before.
like 13. That's like 13 years ago, dude. That's like...
Yeah, I know. I started when I was 22. So just so you know, I'm only 35 and Nick is older than me. But I mean, 2007, before it was cool to shoot wedding films, before there were story-driven films, before Facebook business pages existed, before YouTube was popping, like it was before everything. And so fast forward, 500 weddings later, I am now charging in the higher end in my portion of the country, was really good about like running my business and taking great care of clients and continually building my brand and raising my prices. And so, 10, 10 years or so in, I started getting a lot of messages from different people asking me, how are you charging what you're charging? This is kind of crazy. Like, how are you doing this? I'm seeing your films. They're really great, but mine are just as good or close to it. Like, can you help me?
Or
and
better.
I started getting a bunch of questions. Yes, or better. And people were just like, can you help me with my pricing pages? Can you help me with my how to charge more? Or like, can you look at this? And I kept telling these people these things, and they would message me back and be like, oh my goodness, that like changed my business. I'm making $2,000 more dollars a wedding, and this is crazy. And I just kind of gave them that motivation to kind of push themselves further, to grow more, to be, you know, uncomfortable in charging more. And so people are asking me like, do you have anything I can buy from you? Do you have any courses? Do you have anything? And I didn't, and I just knew I really wanted to, but timing was weird. And so I just kept doing what I was doing well, and sooner or later was really ready to pull the trigger. And that's when Nick came into the picture, and we started having conversations in 2018, started a YouTube channel, let that kind of go for a little while, just kind of making any kind of video to see if anybody would care what we have to say. And about October of 18, we decided, hey, let's interview each other and maybe do a podcast. And so Nick interviewed me on how to book big weddings, and we put that out in some video groups online. And within a few weeks, it was getting hundreds and then thousands and then tens of thousands of downloads. We were starting to get all of the, you know, big names in the wedding video industry interested in being on. And like, man, in the last year and 7-8 months, you know, life has changed a lot for us. It's been crazy. And so we can get into that more, but I mean, I'm a very passionate, you know, wedding filmmaker. I love my job. I love helping people. My wife does not help me run the company with me. I shoot with other second shooters, other associates with me, and we've just continually built a video and photo brand over the last 13 years.
Fantastic. Yeah, I mean, it's certainly been a huge year for you guys with the podcast and with the group and everything. And it sounds like you've got a really good mix in terms of wanting to lean into the educational side of things, you know, like Nick with your like youth pastor side of things, and then John, you're obviously a bit more sort of like business minded and sort of that focus and stuff. So it definitely comes out in the content. But was there anything about sort of a podcast in particular that you felt was going to stick, or was it very much a case of just like putting a whole bunch of things out there and then that's what really landed?
Well, so whenever we started this, we started our YouTube channel was, you know, around the time whenever Craig Adams had kind of gone, you know, he had his channel and he kind of went away, and then he kind of came back and then he went away again. You know, he was kind of in that phase. And so there weren't a lot of people that were making that specific kind of content. And so we were like, hey, let's just try that. And after spending a lot of time and a lot of energy, and at least my wife getting on to me because I was working on this how to film weddings thing instead of our own business, you know, we just decided, man, there's got to be something different. The YouTube video isn't seem to getting some traction, and we had talked about, you know, interviewing each other. And the first time we did it, we like tried to do it as like a YouTube video, and then after we were done recording, we're like, is this a podcast? Like, did we just do this? So then we kind of brainstormed and figure out, okay, how do we do this? And at the time, whenever we recorded that first episode, Wedding Film Academy was the only real wedding video specific podcast at the time. There were some other ones that were like, you know, kind of, you know, they record one and then like 4 months later they do a couple more, you know, like that kind of stuff. And so there wasn't anything consistent. And so we made that one. And then John and I just had this conversation of, okay, if we're going to do a podcast, we're going to do it. And, you know, we're committing to 50 episodes once a week, so a year worth of podcast. And Nick, we might not see any return from this. We're probably not going to make any money. No one is going to listen to like all of these things. But I think that is what set us up to grow and like make something of it, is because we were committed to doing it no matter if it was successful in the eyes of, downloads or making money or anything like that, but, just something that we wanted to do because we wanted to help, and, playing the long game of, hey, maybe down the road something could turn into this, but we committed to that at the very beginning to create something that would help the community.
Fantastic. And, from especially in the sort of the last, 8 months or so, there's definitely been a push from you guys around like, like the monetization side of things, and like courses and building a sponsorship base and things like that. Was that always sort of in the back of your mind as like, this is going to become like hopefully an extra sort of income for you guys, something to support the wedding film business?
Heck yes.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I mean, because the thing is, like, so funny story. My younger brother runs a internet gaming company that like they teach people how to play like tabletop games with each other. Where like it's really geeky. It's not all the way to Dungeons and Dragons, but it's close. And so like I always give them a hard time, but it's really cool. And I watched them build this audience. They have 50,000 YouTube subscribers, and they just slowly and steadily put in this content again and again. And here I was making this, making a wedding film, getting paid a lot, but then eating and I don't have anything left over. Like, oh, I've got to go film another wedding. Oh, I've got to, and it was always kind of like, I can't ever get really out ahead of this. And it's so, I had watched him and his company, and now they have all these like tokens and products to go along with the content that they're helping. And he said something to me one time, and he was just like, if you build a channel wide enough, whatever you put on one end of it, the other end, there's going to be money that comes out sooner or later if you treat people well and you take care of them. And like our goal wasn't, hey, how can we make money doing this? But we thought if we were able to add value, then heck yes, people would pay money. And so, things like we have a digital template shop on our website, and it's like 40 emails to run your wedding business. Like Nick and I spent hours and hours, and Nick's wife, on crafting emails, 40 emails to run your whole business. And you can buy them for $75 on our site. And it's like $75 is a great exchange for the hundreds of hours that went into learning how to communicate. And people buy those and they message us and they're like, wow, I made more money because this helped me prompt them to sell something. And so our goal has always been, how can we elevate the industry? And if we want to provide free content, which is the majority, 95% of what we do. But we do also provide things that it's like that next level. If you want to pay for something that we've spent a ton of time and a lot of energy, and the community's really accepted it. We've had a few people that are like, oh, you're all about the money. But it's like when it comes down to it, for us to put in the extra 40 hours a week a piece on this podcast, it's got to pay us money, or sooner or later, it's just a hobby. And so we knew that if we could start generating some revenue from it, that it could potentially outpace our income from, if you build a wide enough channel, then, you can put more things on the channel and more money comes out the other side. So, that was 1,000,000% in the, we thought, though, it'd be 24 months before we made a penny. And so that's been
that was a conversation we definitely had, where John was like, John is really, really great at like thinking 2, 3, 5 years down the line. And so, which isn't necessarily one of my really big strong suits. And so he was committed from the beginning, like, hey, I'm in this for the long haul, but just letting you know, we're going to be working ourselves dog tired for maybe 2 years before we see anything, from this. And thankfully, that scale got, sped up a lot faster. We signed our first sponsor, 6 months after launching. But, it's definitely been something where we want to give, but, we're spending a lot of time. So, it's nice to be compensated for all this time and energy that we're putting into it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's certainly a relatable, I guess, problem solving, that you guys are going through. A lot of us with like wedding films, it is that like sort of gig based economy where it's like you do the job, you get paid, you got to find the next client. And like, whilst that's good for a while, it is a bit sort of unsettling to think, okay, what am I going to, be like when I'm like 50 doing this, like, so, it is, definitely, you can see that it is like part of your guys' content, but it is in a really good way, especially like some of those more bite-sized products. because that is definitely something that there was like this gap between like there was like LUTs and stuff, and then there was like massive courses you can buy, and there wasn't really anything in between. And like courses are great, but at the same time, having those little things to like get your email templates locked in and stuff is cool to just sort of like get people along the journey as well. So that was really cool. And before we sort of dive in on your like community as a whole, I'd love to talk about your sort of, I guess, sort of closer network ring and how the podcast has affected that, and specifically like your guests and using the podcast as a way to like interact with people in the industry and how that's affected you guys and your business and all that sort of stuff.
I wasn't expecting it, but like, I don't really know what I was expecting, but when you start interviewing some of these amazing filmmakers and you get an hour with them, it's pretty much like Nick and I for a while there would have an hour kind of like mentor session with them. Not necessarily like we're the student, we're coming to you because we knew what we were doing, but we would pick up little things. And so, you know, when you can interview White and Reverie and Ray Roman and Matt Johnson in the same week, and just get 3 hours of time, you get to your wedding film that weekend and you're like, I think about myself differently now. I'm pumped up. And it was like, that's what we wanted to be with our podcast, was like, what if we could make it feel like you were friends with that guest, and it just felt comfortable, and like we pulled back the curtain of this like mystery, and it's like we really had real talks. And so I remember like 2, 3, 4 months into recording the podcast, like being at wedding films and just being like, I'm so much better at this now. Like I wasn't even trying to get better, and I'm incorporating these things, and I've learned this lighting technique down to, you know, we had Matt Koza on early, and he was like, yeah, I just tell the reception, whoever's running the reception to turn the lights down during speeches. And I've been doing weddings for 13 years and have never thought, like, I'm always like, how do they get that like dark background and like perfectly lit speech? And I was like, oh yeah, they just turn off the lights and the reception, or just little things like that where it's just like, are you kidding me? How did I not know this? And so it changed everything for me. I mean, Nick was already pretty perfect at shooting weddings, but for me, as just a decent videographer that is very humble, you know.
Humble brags.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And for me, I would say, you know, one of the cool things about this is when in any field or that you get in, you know, we have our quote unquote celebrities that are in the field that are doing this. And I think with us connecting with so many people over the last 100+ episodes is that we realize that everyone's just a person, and they're just as normal as we are, or as goofy or as awkward, or, you know, whatever. They're just normal people. And that's something that I think is really refreshing and really cool, that I'm just, you know, it's like, you know, maybe we're talking with Kaylin and Christine from White and Reverie, but as we're interacting with them, you know, they're no different than me, you know, hitting up my friend Dave who lives in town and us going and getting coffee. You know, it's like, it's the exact same type of feel and same type of thing as we talk with these people that we think, you know, so highly of in our industry. And we should think highly of them because of the work they're doing and how they're giving back and all that kind of stuff. But they're just, you know, we're all just normal people just doing something.
Just people. Yeah, for sure. Cool, man. And so I guess now to talk about the community that's built around your podcast and your content. Did you have any idea from the start of the potential numbers? Have the numbers surprised you? You know, what's been that experience over the last year? Because it's grown a lot.
Yeah. So John, from the very beginning, John was very adamant about no Facebook group. He's like, we're not going to do that. And I wasn't like hard, yes, we need to do this, we need to have one. But I was kind of like, well, are you sure? Like, you're just saying blanket no. And John, do you remember what it was that we decided, man, we need a group? I can't remember exactly what happened whenever we did that. Do you?
I just remember there being a few groups out there that I won't name that like I hated being a part of because they were so toxic and just like, oh, come on, why do these? And I just didn't want to create that. And I didn't want to create the Facebook group until, like, if we would have tried from the very beginning to create the group, I feel like it would have come across as, oh, we're like trying to do a lot and whatever, before building credibility. And so like, without knowing how to process that or say that, that's why internally I was saying, no, I don't want to do a group, because I just didn't want to be like all the other groups, and I didn't think we had enough credibility yet to like, why would anyone join our group? And so I wanted to get to a point where people were almost begging us to have a group before we started it. And I think we just kept holding off. And it'd been like a year, like right?
Well,
like 6 months.
It had been close. I think that we launched the podcast in October, and I think that there was some group that you had made a long time ago that had like 150 people in it that was basically dead, and so we just repurposed that one. And I want to say it was probably we launched in October the podcast, and I think it was maybe March, April, somewhere in there the next year, so close to 6 months.
And I think it was we were just tired of spamming other groups with our info and our pod.
That might have been it, or we had decided that we were going to start selling templates, and we wanted a place to talk. Something there was some catalyst for it, and we're like, okay, let's do that. And from the very beginning, we were very purposeful, and we're like, we want to be different. This isn't going to be a group where you can just share your wedding video when you finish it. Sorry if you're listening to this, if you've ever shared your video, it probably got deleted unless it was in the right thread. Positivity has been something that we have, looked for, and, we appreciate it whenever our, other people of our community like get onto that. And when someone's being negative, there's like other people in the group that are like, hey, like, quit being negative, quit being that way, and positivity and elevating the industry and elevating, wedding filmmakers has been the big priority for us. And this group, I think, has played an integral part in doing that.
I was going to say, to talk about the numbers that you were saying, like, for us, I'm a numbers guy, and I love numbers, but I don't love them for the sake of numbers. Like, I'd rather have 400 people in the group that like were committed and like wanted to get better than like 4 million people in the group. And so for us, it was like I didn't know what to expect. And I remember a few months in, like one day, it's like, so-and-so wants to join your group. So-and-so wants to, and I was like, what is happening? And there was like 200 people in one day. And I was like, something is going on. And it turns out our friend Matt Johnson had mentioned our group in one of his Facebook or one of his YouTube videos, and was like, if you need to, want to join a group, join this group. And then it just went from like 400 to 1,500 people in like a day. And then it just took off, and it was like, oh my goodness. Then it went from like 1,500 to 2,500, and we're just like, oh my goodness, like this is crazy. And now it's over 6,000 people in that group, and we're constantly still just baffled at like how big of a number that really is and how many people that represents. And then also just the attitude and positivity in that group. Yeah, you get some trolls every now and then, but like they don't last long in the group. And so it has been mind-blowing. The whole thing for me, the whole podcast and everything, like I start talking about what's happened in the last 24 months, and I'm just like, how is this real life? Like, how are we getting paid to do this and getting paid at the scale we were getting paid to do this? And like, we've launched our course now. It's like we're not even to 24 months yet. And it's like beyond our wildest dreams. And I think that all goes back to setting those expectations early, knowing what kind of community we wanted to build, and staying true to that from the beginning.
Yeah. And because I definitely want to dive in on the sort of the curation of the group and the kind of like values and structure you put into the group, because I think that's been one of the big successes of it. But what about a sort of Facebook or similar specific group is, important or does something different to, say, just like the comment thread on a YouTube video or something like that? Like what about a group adds some extra layer of value?
I think that where at least I will say for me, I pretty much only use Facebook now for this How to Film Weddings group. I mean, a majority of the time that I spend is in that group, and interacting with people, that you can actually kind of, get to know and talk to. And, we've, one of the things that I really appreciate, we have a group of about 6 admins or so that, we're in a chat thread and we're talking all the time, and we're encouraging each other and helping each other in our businesses as while, we're doing this group. Of course, that doesn't really answer your question there, but I think that for us to be real interacting people and trying to be not just what our photo says next to our name on Facebook, and trying to show our hearts behind everything that we do has been really beneficial. And I think that for the most part, people know and understand, where it is we're coming from whenever we say things, because, for so long, we've been saying them on our podcast. And so, man, I'm not sure I'm answering this question right.
I can jump into what you're saying is correct.
Please do.
For sure. I think it's like the heartbeat of our community. And as it sits right now, Facebook groups is the best part about Facebook. And, we started our group in time. I feel like there's a group for every little niche of every little thing now. And like you're getting added to groups of people selling oils, or you're getting, and it's like, stop. But like the point for us, like the features that it allows, to be able to go live inside of the group, interacting with people, and it stays in the group and it's private, and you can set rules, and you can, see the statistics of who's interacting, and, and from a business standpoint, the Facebook group is great for feedback and polls and seeing who's interested in knowing our demographics and all of that stuff. So all the analytics that we can get from it. But yes, we wanted to be a hub for the wedding filmmaking community. And so, where you go to the water cooler between your editing breaks to like just see what's going on, or to kind of catch up with what's new. And, that's kind of, and we wanted to curate that because there's a lot of people with no credibility releasing products and courses and LUTs and things just because they're trying to make money, and like, oh, I can make a course and I can sell a lot and I'll make money. And that's their heart, is like the money. And for us, it was like we want to showcase other people that we've vetted and we know that they're a legit business that could really help other people. And so we curate that so people can't just be like, check out my new YouTube video review of this camera or microphone, because we don't know who they are. They haven't built a name. They haven't done anything to establish credibility. So we wanted to be a credible place for people to go and learn and grow and help each other, and then connect some of the people that have been doing it for a long time with some of the people that haven't been doing it a long time, and help each other. Because ultimately, if we can help elevate the wedding film industry, my Redeemed Productions company benefits, and so does Nick's, and so does yours. And so like that was selfishly, it's like if we can get people to stop charging, $1,500 for a wedding their 7th year into business because they're afraid to raise their price, like that will help me, help them, help me, and so it just all flowed together.
It all comes around. Yeah.
And so that group, Facebook group, just made it where it's the easiest place for us to connect on a personal level with so many people all at once. You can't do it on Instagram messages yet. You can't do it. And so if there were a better platform, we're not like loyal to just Facebook or something, but that's been a great, like everything kind of feeds into the Facebook group.
Yeah. And because going back to what you're saying around like the water cooler, like the thing I found with Facebook groups that I've always gravitated to is they kind of fill that void of people like us who like work from home, work alone, and to get that kind of like office environment of just like talking shop and bouncing ideas around. And I was always frustrated with some of those larger like wedding video Facebook groups because there was no actual discussions going on. And like I'm part of a couple of really great sort of like predominantly photo groups here in New Zealand, which are fantastic, and they've got great communities and great conversations, but I was really craving that kind of like wedding film specific groups to like dive in on conversations around that. So that's been, one of the things I've really loved about your group. And I think a lot of it comes down to your curation and your control of it so that it doesn't become one of those because there's plenty of those like
it's
huge,
a lot
big
of work.
Wedding video for
it's a ton of work.
Absolutely. So do you want to go into a little bit around what work does go into that and how you guys have sort of like built and structured the how you run your group?
It took a lot more at the first, right, Nick? I mean,
it really did at the beginning, and we had lots of conversations with the people. Of course, it was just me and John for probably until like 2,000 members. Just we kind of had these ideas. Maybe it was 1,000. Just okay. We don't want everyone to share their wedding videos. That was a big thing. We don't want a bunch of hey, I'm selling this or like those kind of posts. So we were trying to establish what makes this group a little bit different. What makes this group stand apart from other groups that were around, and the old idea of some of these, really big Facebook groups is kind of like the wild, wild west where anything says and anything goes. And so at the very beginning, we were purposeful in the types of content that we were allowing, the types of stuff that we wanted. And then after a while of being very consistent about that, then it was just like it continued to happen without us being so hands-on, because it was like the people that were involved knew about it, like we, have our rule that you post, new wedding videos on our Thursday thread. And, now it's the only people that are posting wedding videos, whenever they finish one, are people that have been in our group for like 3 days, and they just don't, they just don't know, they haven't been a part of it. And like, we don't get that kind of stuff. And, I think it's really just neat to see that John and I, it's not that we're not involved with the group now, but we're definitely not as hands-on today that we were, 6, 8, 10 months ago, because the group has kind of turned into its own thing where we're just, there, we're observing it, we'll comment when we need to, we'll make statements or, chime in, have some fun every now and then, but it doesn't, we've cultivated such a good thing that it doesn't need us to, be so hands-on all the time.
Do you feel like you've built the group to a place that you're, I guess, kind of like happy with now? Do you have any kind of like places you want to take it in the future?
For me, it's always just been like, I'm great for it to keep growing. I mean, we're adding hundreds of new people every month, which is great as the numbers guy. I love to see healthy growth. I mean, but honestly, for me, like, I'm not like, oh, we need to get to the biggest group on the planet, or it's more about the quality and the purity of it than it is about the quantity. I know that I want to be, like, I've heard this said before, but like, be the miracle for somebody that you wanted, like that you wanted to have whenever you were in that position. And it's like, I wish that there was something like this whenever I was starting. And it's like, I can't imagine deciding to start filming weddings like today and just searching like on Facebook, like how to film a wedding. And like, we pop up and it's like, wow, this group is really helpful. And wow. Or, on YouTube, typing in how to film a wedding and editing, it's like all this content. It's like, I can't imagine having that. And so for me, I just knew that with the 500 plus weddings that I've done and the several hundred that Nick has done, it's like, if we can help other people, there's value in that, number one, and that would give us like some type of extra potential income. But like more importantly, it's like, we just wanted to be that miracle for somebody, that didn't have that when they, like when they're starting out. So yeah. And
has there anything sort of cropped up that hang on, Siri, I don't want you, Siri. Go away. Has there been anything in the group that's popped up that's really surprised you guys? And because you kind of like grown this sort of quite organic thing, like you said, you sort of stepped back now, and it's kind of the wheels are sort of turning, and you sort of set it off to go. Has there been anything that's come out of it that's really surprised you and gone, I couldn't have even imagined of that happening?
Do you have something, John?
No, not really.
No. Well, I think the thing that is that I really appreciate that has come from it is, I think that whenever you, most people, whenever you set a precedence and you're consistent with that, the people eventually kind of know and get it and understand it. And, like I was saying, how John and I have kind of been able to take a little bit of a step back in the Facebook group and not be as hands-on, but it still continues to run, and people are still commenting and answering questions and being helpful and positive. And, we wanted to, we would see comments, someone that's been in the business for 6 months would ask a very, very basic question in other groups, and people would tear them apart and make them feel insignificant and small and awful. And we wanted to create a space where it doesn't matter where you are on this wedding video journey, if you need answers, we want to be the place where you can go to ask them. And so even to this day, when you have someone that's new, that is just trying to get their feet wet, the people are very positive and open to responding to them rather than just ripping them from the get-go. And anytime, now, and it still happens, a newer person asks a question, there's that one person that makes some really, nasty comment, and then we just, delete it, and we message them and we're like, hey, this isn't what we're trying. Oh, I'm so sorry. I was just, joking around and being silly. And to them, they really were, but you have to look at it, from the other side. And so, we're able to, create this thing. And then we don't usually get comments like that from those people, from then on, because we take the time and say, hey, this is what we're trying to build. And they understand that, they know that. So I think just the openness and being accepting of people that are, just starting the wedding video journey has been a very positive outcome from this group.
Yeah, absolutely. And because I think a lot of people join all these Facebook groups as a way to just I finish a film, I post it, just try and put my work in front of people. Talking to those people, engaging in a group like this with other people's work, having constructive conversations. How does that help people grow as wedding videographers beyond just here's my work, tell me how great it is?
Yeah, I think we're in a very transactional time in the history of the world where it's, microwave, quick, easy, everything is, I post something now, I get likes. I need that adrenaline rush of the constant approval from others. And I think that, especially, some filmmakers out there, it's they're really just trying to get views and get famous in the industry or whatever and just want to show off their stuff, but they don't take the time to build any credibility before they just kind of, it's I don't want to watch your wedding film, even if it's the best wedding film. Because I make wedding films all the time, and so there's a difference between that and if Nick sent me one of Ben's films and was just hey, you got to check this out. That's different, and that is a natural, slow progression. There's nothing wrong with putting your work in places so people can see it, or you can get critique or things like that. But a lot of people, in our group especially, would be check out my behind the scenes video at a wedding, and it's we don't know who you are. You didn't ask us if it was cool if you posted. It just feels like you're trying to use the group we built to build your brand. No thanks. And it's if you would just send us a message, or would you would just start interacting so we'd know who you are and just romance the girl just a little bit, don't try to get a kiss on the first date or whatever it is. It's take your time and really get to know the heartbeat of whatever group you're going to post in or whatever. And so I just think a lot of people are very instant gratification. I need this right now. I want to show, here's my stuff. I want you to watch it. They don't want to watch anyone else's stuff. There's no give and take. It's just all take. And so a little bit more give would be my advice to somebody like that.
Yeah. And I think too, it's very natural whenever you're first starting out, or probably into the first 3 or 4 years, you want everyone to like you and you want everyone to appreciate your stuff. And we care a whole lot about what other people in our industry think about our work. And, now 7 years in, 8 years in, and John at, 13 years in, do I like it if John thinks my video is awesome? Sure. Yeah, it makes me feel good. But do I care? I mean, not really. It's the work that I am doing is not for him. The work that I'm doing ultimately is for the couples that I am making it for. And if they love it and they appreciate it, that's really all that matters. And I think that once you can kind of get over that hurdle in your business, that, I'm not creating this art for other videographers. I'm creating this for my couples. That's a huge hurdle. And once you realize that, then I think you can actually really get better and get more purposeful in your craft, because you're okay, what's going to last with my couple? What are they going to appreciate? What are they going to like? And then you can go in and say, here's this video that I finished, in our critique thread, here's this video that I finished, the couple of it. What do you think? How can I get better? And not posting it from hey, I finished this is awesome. you can be proud of it, yes, but for the eyes of how can I get better? And, someone you watches your film and critiques it, and then we ask you to watch someone else's and critique theirs. So it's, a very, very cyclical, you're asking for something, but you're giving something also. And I think that makes us all better, storytellers and filmmakers and all of that whenever we ask for things, but we also give back.
Yeah, absolutely. And because I think a lot of people like you're saying, want that instant gratification. Like, it's easy for them to like put their work out there and let's say like, tell me how great it is. But sort of the idea of like giving advice and sharing their secrets, I think a lot of people get guarded around. And I think one of the great things you guys have done by like enforcing those things, like if you post your film, make sure you critique someone else's, like make sure you add value, is that it's training people to go, it's okay to put my secrets out there, it's okay to like share my knowledge, because it all comes back and it all gets put into the pot and mixed around.
Yeah, I think for me, it's always been very funny to me. I've never, I live in a town of 1 million people, and there's, maybe 8 or 10 filmmakers that are solid in my city. And it's like, if each of us had 25 weddings, that's still only a few hundred weddings. And in my community, there's over 10,000 weddings a year. It's like, there had to be like 1,000 wedding filmmakers for me to be like concerned. And yes, somebody might get a booking but like, I'm honestly like happy if somebody else in my community gets booked, like in my home city, like over me, if like a couple likes them better and jives well better with them. Like after a few years of doing this, you get more confident in yourself and like what you offer. And if somebody doesn't like that, it doesn't hurt your feelings. If you're just like, yeah, we're not the best fit. And so it always baffles me when people are like trying to hold on to their secrets when it comes to the way they do what they do in the industry, as if someone's going to rip them off and then all of a sudden like they're going to go out of business or something. And it just usually comes down to insecurity is what I've seen. And so we just wanted to blow right through that in our podcast and just, before talking to certain guests, we're like, hey, we're going to ask you how much you charge. We're going to ask you, how long you've been doing this. We're like, we have a kind of a list of questions. Like, are you comfortable? Like, is there anything you're not comfortable talking about? And some people are more reserved about some things, but for the most part, people are willing to communicate how much they're making, like all that kind of stuff, because it does help somebody that is newer that says, oh, wow, John's charging, $15,000 for a wedding film. I'm never going to get there. And it's like, yeah, but that was my 9th year whenever I first did that. And so whenever I was in my 2nd year, and just giving people this context and making it comfortable for people to talk about things they never talked about, I think especially at the beginning was the most attractive part about what we did, is we wanted to set it up, like a talk show that you're just hanging out with friends, as opposed to like this, we're better than you, we're going to teach you on our podcast. It was like we would include questions from the audience, and we would, make it more about everybody's giving and throwing in value, and then you can pull value out. But if we all get better, we're all going to win. That's all.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, that's something that I keep like chiming on with what I do, is just like put your secrets out there, because it's like, it's better that you like just put everything out there and it mulls around, and then you'll get stuff back. Like it's it's a much better way of doing things. I guess to finish us off, you guys have just hit a pretty huge milestone of triple digits in your podcast. Where to now? Where's your content growing? Where are you growing? How to film weddings? What does the next year look like for you? Are you going to keep on that sort of exploding growth trajectory? Are you going to start to sort of cool the boiler down a bit? What's sort of the plan going forward?
Do you want me to talk, Nick?
Yeah. I'll let you talk.
So for us, like we were pushing, we launched a course, The Complete Wedding Videographer, in February, and it did really well. And we had it open for a week, and we're planning on launching it again sometime this year. And so like we really want to dive into deeper content with people That is a paid course, and it's expensive for a reason, because it's everything that we know about, it's complete wedding videography course. I mean, it's everything. And so like, we really wanted to dive into like deeper education, more personal education, hands-on type things. Our podcast, we're going to continue to do, and like we were doing Mondays and Thursdays. We've cooled that down a little bit to just Mondays. If we can produce somewhere between 50 and 70 episodes a year, that's kind of like our happy spot of like, that's 50 to 70 free hours of content, plus all of the free content that's within our Facebook group. And we're creating more products, more digital templates, more things for people to help them in their business. So it's kind of doing what we're doing, but still that slow and steady build. We didn't know that we would just zoom at any time, and we weren't like in a hurry to do that. And so for us, we just keep seeing the numbers tick up every single month. And so even if they plateaued or whatever, like that's fine. But like for us, we want to continue offering valuable content. We don't do the podcast just to make money, or like if it wasn't any fun, we would stop doing it. And so like we're continually trying to figure out what's like the most fun for us to talk about and how to revisit subjects, and so with 100 episodes, you've talked about a lot of things, but there's still just a lot more to talk about, and helping people and growing and what's changing and trending each year. And so the podcast isn't going anywhere. It's continuing to zoom. It's going great. More paid content, like for digital templates, things like that. We'll re-release our course hopefully before the end of this year again, and just like really start like add more people into that group. What else am I missing, Nick?
One of the other things that we're, I think we're being purposeful in going back to once a week for our podcast. Whenever we were in course launch mode, we were selling something, but John and I felt like we were being very, very salesy, because from, I think, beginning of probably December through, launch in February, over that, 14-week period, we had like 25 episodes, some crazy number like that. And, so we definitely wanted to tone that down and, go get back to, just giving to people without asking for, especially a big buy, which was our course, which has helped so many people that purchased that. But one of the other things that we really do want to dive into more in the future, continue the podcast, but really take more of a deeper dive into YouTube content creation, videos on gear reviews, and little tips and tricks, and how I set up my reception lighting, stuff like that. That's something that we're really we're kind of fine tuning now, and we're kind of getting a plan. Because like the podcast, we don't want to, just do, a couple episodes here and there and then never again. We want to say, okay, we're going to commit to doing this for, weekly for, 3 months, and then reevaluating after that. So that's kind of what we're gearing up for, kind of the future as a part of like the free sort of content. Yeah.
Fantastic. Sounds exciting. I guess that's going to sort of wrap us up in terms of the show. Thank you so much for your time and coming on and having a chat. It's been really nice to talk with you guys after seeing your face and hearing your voices for over a year now. I guess thank you so much for building that Facebook community around your content, because it has been a really good place. Something that I was craving in terms of a place to have really good, solid, proper conversations about problems I was trying to work out within my work. So thank you.
Well, you're quite welcome. And if anybody wants to join that hasn't heard of it, we're just How to Film Weddings. So it's pretty easy. Yeah. Search us anywhere, and you can find the group How to Film Weddings or all the stuff on our website. So seriously cool to get asked on other. For that. Yeah. Well, that's awesome. And it's just, thank you for doing this and creating your podcast. And like we've really tried to tell people, if they do want to create content, to please do it, or reach out to us to, like we're not afraid to share our secrets when it comes to that kind of stuff as well. So definitely a pleasure. I appreciate getting to meet you. And I know Nick and I are big fans of you, so appreciate you having us on.
Yeah, cool. Awesome, guys. Wicked. All right. Well, that's going to do us. And we'll see you guys next time. Peace.
See you.